All right, how's everyone doing? I am Rich CELENZA. Thanks for checking out the Rich CELENZA Show. So what I'm going to call this podcast is your degree holding you back? Now, what's crazy is I don't have a degree. I know. And I actually have two daughters going to college, and one of them is actually going to be working on getting her master's soon, which I'm very proud of both of my daughters. And, even though I went to a junior college in Florida, I just knew college wasn't for me. And what's interesting, I have most of my closest friends in Chicago that I grew up, I went to a private Catholic school. They all went on to become very successful in many different things, and they all went to college. I used to, visit them in the college years. I just had no interest. I went to Florida and just immediately started working. And they all went on. A lot of them become lawyers, very successful lawyers, owning their own firms downtown, and also my accountants and just businessmen in general, real estate, very educated, very wealthy, a lot of them. And I was just not into it. But what I'm going to talk about today is actually, when it comes to degree, is somebody standing from the outside and being around a lot of people who have degrees. And which I find amazing, that they committed themselves to, going to school and educating themselves and spending money. And I think a lot of times people nowadays kind of dismiss college at times, like, oh, it's a ripoff and I wouldn't waste my money or they're way too expensive. And I get it. I also think a lot of people devalue, like even saying, oh, I have a degree here, like just like, oh, yeah, that's cool. I think you got to realize how much time and effort it is to get a degree or to just go accomplish things. I think too, college, a lot of people think it's just a party fun spot. It's a lot of hard work to get a degree a lot of times. There's a lot of studying involved, a lot of testing. It's just, and a lot of times you got to support yourself. You have debt. So, I see that part of it. I also think, though, I will say a lot of times people do go to college, and that's what I'm going to talk about now, kind of just to go. They're kind of confused, which is understandable. They don't know what they're going to do yet. I don't think any of us truly know what we're going to do for the most part, a lot of us throughout our entire life. Some do, sure, if you're a doctor, lawyer, certain things. But I think for the most part, a lot of us are, in this day and age, changing careers, changing jobs, becoming entrepreneurs, doing all these different types of things that maybe in the past we weren't doing as much. But if you're somebody out there, though, what I really want to get into is you got a degree in something maybe you're not interested in, and you went and worked somewhere, or you've worked there for a substantial amount of time. I want you to just tell you, be aware. Don't let your degree lock you into a life of misery or thinking that you can only do that specific thing. And I think this happens especially as people get older. They get a degree in something, they go work for a decade or two or whatever, and that's all they kind of know too. And then they become miserable because they don't like what they are doing now or the way it panned out. I'll just use, for example, my cousin who was one of the top editors in Chicago, and his calling was in the 70s to go make films and be an editor. And he did it in the 70s and 80s, and he loved it in the 90s. And then the 2000s came around. It became very saturated. I don't want to say overly competitive, but things became maybe easier as far as shooting, but it wasn't what it once was and what he once loved about it. It just entirely changed, which is understandable, like anything else. And I think what a lot of people have to understand is when you get a degree in something now, it may be entirely different in the future. And I mean, technology overall just turned everything on its head, right? Let's call it for what it is. Even if you thought you were knowledgeable in certain things, if you went to college in the 80s and 90s, right? Even in the 2000s, now, forget about it. If you don't have certain skills, I don't care what your degree is, you're going to be left behind. So, and no one can predict the future. I'm not saying you can, but the one thing I want to say in this is, your degree, do not let it hold you back. And I don't mean that as far as saying, my degree's weak or, I spent all this money on my degree or getting this certain thing and now I feel like a failure because now I have a totally different idea on what I want to do in my life, but I spent all this money getting a degree. I understand that. I mean, like most people, but I do think you letting something like your degree for the rest of your life kind of guide your life, and that's something you don't want to do, I think is it's ridiculous. I just don't think you should do that to yourself. accept the degree for what it is, and if you want to advance your schooling and try something else, wonderful. But don't lock yourself into something for the rest of your life. I will officially wrap it up with this, because I have a close friend of mine, another one who was a lawyer for years, and he was actually in my films, and he was a lawyer, and I don't think he liked being a lawyer. He's obsessed with health and wellness. To make a long story short, he left. He's not even a lawyer any longer, and he is one of the top trainers in Illinois. Now, I'm sure he may not be making the same money, right? He may not have the same credentials as, say, a lawyer that would own his own firm in Chicago, and maybe his family may look at him differently, or friends, or everybody saying, how dare you leave after you went to law school, passed the bar, worked for a firm, and then now you're training people in CrossFit, let's just say. But here's the deal. I know it may be stressful for him up and down like anybody else, but he's doing what he truly loves to do. And slowly but surely, he probably will succeed to being even maybe wealthier than when he was a lawyer. But he's doing what he wants to do. He did not lock into something that he did not want to do. So that is just an example of what I'm using. Your passion sometimes and what you want to do. And you only really got one go around a lot of times in this life. Don't think you're going to get, a lot of people think your 20s are gone, you're not getting them back, your 30s are gone, your 40s are gone, whatever the case may be. Use all the time that you have on this planet to truly do what you love. That's going to inspire you. I know that kind of sounds like one of those guys who are... those coaches who talk online all the time. But I'm just telling you, not only do not let your degree hold you back, don't let anything else hold you back. Be open-minded enough and have the confidence to say, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to change. I want to do different things. I want to get a different education. Or I just want to be an entrepreneur. Or I want to, I just want to do something different. I don't have to do what I went to college for or any type of schooling. Okay? But I will say this officially. Just be careful. I don't want you to lose all your money. If you got a mortgage and kids and all that, let's not get too crazy. Maybe balance some things out. Don't give everything up. I'm not saying that either. But definitely, I think throughout your life, if you get creative, you can definitely start doing other things you want to do and do it without necessarily hurting yourself. All right, that's all I got for you. Got any questions or comments, please feel free to hit me up. I'm at richcelenza.com. My email is rich@richcelenza.com.